members, staff members of the party and speaking to them about their roles, what they do, and what they are looking forward to now that we have finished one as the MK party. Sitting with me is Mr. Luther Labello. How are you doing, sir?
I'm okay, and how are you, Darren?
Good. Thank you. So you are the advisor to the High Command. What exactly does that entail? What's that role been like? Can you give us a bit of insight?
Yeah, the role in the main is about the High Command knowing that they have me for any other form of advice. So, the whole leadership can tap into me and ask for this advice or that advice. So it's broadly like that.
So you've got quite a bit of insight and information, you say?
For sure.
I heard a rumor that there might be a book that you wrote. Can you tell us a bit about that? Just a little bit. I heard it's a very big book. But maybe just a little insight into that.
Yeah, look, the book came about when I left SARS. I used to be the head of communication at SARS and the spokesperson of SARS under the Honorable Mr. Tom Moyane. He did great work there. And after that, I wrote a book called Consciousness of Being God, which is more about consciousness, the law of attraction and the law of manifestation. How do you attract things into your life and how do you manifest them? And I know my comrade Dlamolo likes the book a lot, but it's about that. It's just about how we manifest. And I know that if all of us can collectively as Black people have one vision, defeat the temptation of division by the oppressor, because the oppressor's only weapon is division. If we can defeat division, we defeat the oppressor. If we can have a collective vision of what we want as a society, we'll attract that vision and we're going to manifest it. And that is what my book knows. So it's about that. And my biggest pain is that we are not attracting the things we want to attract because our imagination of the vision is divided. And there is only one center that has divided us since 1652 to this day. And that's what we must defeat.
It's a very powerful concept. I know I had a conversation with Bonginkosi earlier, and he said one of our biggest challenges would be the mind as well.
Yes.
And I'm sure you agree.
Yes. Actually, my book is about that. They make you believe you are inferior. You accept that you are inferior. You start to think and behave like an inferior being. And then you just feel defeated. Well, they portray this thing of superiority. And ours is just to know that the event that happened in 1652 was unfortunate, but it's not a definition of who we are. We've always been a very powerful society, a powerful nation, both religiously, in all forms, socially, politically, economically, and religious. We used to have, and that is what MK is talking about, we used to have one of the most powerful judicial systems where we were solving our problems without having jails. We didn't have all these problems of rape, all these social ills were not there. We had a social system until they came in 1652, and then they started to create jails and look where we are. And that's why MK at its very core is that we must go tap back to the kind of wisdom that we had in resolving our society before the arrival of the settlers in 1652. And that's what we were tapping to. Because if for millions and millions of years, we had a judicial system that was very jails. We never had rapes. We never had all this hate. Why are we continuing a system that is nothing else but just violence? Because that system, when they landed in 1652, they started with violence. To this day, it's still violence. The world that we know today, the global we know today, they are not solving anything through dialogue. There is a war in Iraq. There is a war in this. There is a war because that's all they know, and that's all they brought here. Otherwise, we're a very, very peaceful, peaceful nation before they arrived.
What do you think the process is of us, for lack of a better term, decolonizing a mindset where we solve our disputes through things like prison, violence, all kinds of antisocial concepts? What do you think the process is of going back to a system that you've alluded to that was successful for millennia?
It's to do exactly what MK Party says. So MK Party says, before the arrival of settlers, or call them whatever name, the land used to belong. So the chiefs were the custodian of the land on behalf of the people. So if me and you wants to build something, we go to the chiefs, we convince them, they give us land to build for society. That's how the land issue was. It was not privatized. The problem started when people started using violence to confiscate land, and after confiscating land, you must buy land from them. Then you must buy food from the land that they produce, but that land belongs to. So the start must start with us owning the land. If you look at the document that we worked on, it says, by the way, land is everything. Land is life. Land is where we bury people, our people. Land is where we produce food. Land is where we get our oxygen. Land is where we get our water. Land is where we build our houses. In fact, the houses that we build, the bricks that we build come from land. I'm not even touching gold. I'm just talking about us as human, we originate from land. And that's why you can go in any world, if you look at history, the greatest colonizers, they start by taking land. Right. Because they know that once you've taken land, you've taken not only the physical land, you've taken the soul of the people that lived in that land. And the return, the core return, should be the return to the land. Everything else is subsidiary to the land. So what we need to do, which is exactly what MK say, is that we must get 2/3 majority, change this Western constitution that has got nothing to do with Africans. We take the land under the custodian of the chiefs, and the chiefs, on behalf of the people, start managing the land. And you'll see, because there can't be poverty when people are owning land, because people can grow vegetables, can grow fruits, they can have animals, which is what you've been doing. That's why before the arrival of colonizers, there was never poverty. Poverty was unknown, because you can't go to sleep hungry when you've got a land, because you can have everything in the land. Poverty started and confirmed in 1913 when 87% of the population who were black were given 13% of the land. 13% of the population that was white got 87% of the land. And their wealth was built from that angle. That's why the settlement of 1994 is a fictitious settlement, because it did not dismantle that which has made us all poor, which is the land.
So let me ask this question, and I know that anybody who's watching, because we've grown up in such a westernized society, the facade is that we live under a democracy and that we somehow control the land through civil actions like the vote, for example. What would you say to somebody who's concerned that if the land were to be under the custodianship or the custody of chiefs, that same abuse of power wouldn't take place?
At least we've got history. Okay, history taught us that before the arrival of colonizers, the land was under the chiefs. There was no abuse. That's the first one.
Sure.
The second one is that if you go to the villages, because the land in the villages is the same arrangement to an extent, it has its own challenges.
Okay.
But there, the chief owns the land. If you come as Daryl coming from that village and you're saying, I'm looking for a stand to have a family, the chief looks at you and you motivate the chief gives you. So there's no abuse. So we've got historical evidence that this thing worked, but we also know that it works somewhere in the villages. The only exploitation in the villages, for instance, is when this Anglo-American, all these global mining companies come there, they exploit the land, take gold and take platinum and leave the people poor. But our people at their very heart, remember, Ubuntu is not a concept, it's who we are. Before we were destroyed by this capital system of winning and losing and taking from people, at our very core is that you cannot eat when your brother or somebody else is not eating. It's in our core. It's in our core. So this world that you must eat alone, others must not have food, and the more they're desperate, you must increase the price. And when millions of people, 5 million people dies, by the way, every year in SADC, and nobody cares about that because it's a pricing game. So that's not African. That's European. In our core, you don't have to be taught that you cannot eat and throw food in the dustbin when your brother and sister is not eating.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because one of the economics principles that we are, I don't want to say taught, that we are indoctrinated with, is that when somebody wants something more, you raise the price.
Yes.
And so what I want to ask is, how does this carry into the pillars in MK Party? What are your thoughts on the pillars in relation to socioeconomic concepts like we've been indoctrinated with under this capitalist society?
Yeah, one of the core pillars is the one I was talking about land. that our attitude is that the land must not belong to private hands. The hand must belong to the people under the custodian of their chiefs, who are trusted, who have been trusted. We had system that used to work. That's the first thing. The second thing is we need to change the current judicial system. You see this thing that they're calling democracy, it's not democracy. So you have got 10 people called constitutional judges, 10 human beings in a country of 62 million. People can vote for MK now and get 2/3 majority. And they can say to MK, we want that and that to happen. DA always do because they understand the system, then they go to the constitutional court and say that which they're asking is unconstitutional. The 10 human beings will say, no, whatever MK is, 50 million people who voted for MK, we don't agree with you. That's done. There is not even an appeal. There is not even, you can't even go to a chief or go to anywhere. It's done. That's not democracy. Democracy is when the people goes to a chief and say to a chief, as the people, we want the following things to happen. And the chief says, if the majority of you is what you want, I give it to you. So what we have is not a democracy. It's a system controlled by a judicial system of the West, where you take, I mean, we know now that, and thanks to President Zuma, through, interrogating the law through all his appeals and cases, we know that this constitutional court are not laws. We know that they are vulnerable. We know that the previous Chief Justice used to meet with politicians in their hotels. So there's no extraordinary, divinity in them. They're just human beings that are vulnerable, that can be bribed. Now, how do you entrust 10 people to make a decision on the livelihood of 62 million people? And you call that democracy? It can't be democracy. See? So it can't be. That's the key thing. The third thing, of course, is that you cannot have a situation where the major 40 million people in this country are Africans, are black. These 40 million people, they don't have a bank where they can go and loan money, because the banks that are there are white banks. You can't even enter there. They will, even if you're working for a company and earning well, they won't give you a loan. They'll give you a loan to a white guy because he's got a father, he's got a farm. Right? So we don't even have a bank for our people, a mere bank that you can just wake up and form. The previous government, we know they've been talking about post office for many minutes. Don't even have a bank. So one of the key pillars of MK is that we need a bank that is sympathetic to our people. This thing of having, and it's unfortunately, I worked for the Department of Small Business. I was the chief of staff, as you were saying, that then you give a department 5 million to give people to do spaza shop. No, our people cannot be reduced to spaza shops. Our people cannot be reduced to spaza shop. Our people should be at the center of the core of the economy. This thing of putting in the, you see, HR Verwoerd wanted a situation where white people are in the center of the economy, in the Sandton and the Rosebank. Black people must be in the periphery.
Right.
As we continue talking about this concept that I don't like, called the township economy, small business and spaza shop, we're actually doing what HR Verwoerd wants. Because one of HR Verwoerd wants us to share the crumbs there.
Maintaining business on the outskirts.
On the outskirts. We're not entering Sandton, because Sandton belongs to them. The core thing about MK is that we want to dismantle this thing. When we are saying we're free, we are a nation that is free. When you are saying in 1994 attained freedom, that freedom cannot be complete. For as long as we build 5 million houses in the townships, and we tell the people that is a township economy must survive there. Don't enter into the city. And that's why 30 years down the line, nothing key has changed. I worked for South African Revenue Service. Out of the 600 billion, probably now it's 700 billion, services that government provide. Government is the biggest provider of services. 600 to 700 billion goes through tender as a service. 90% of those goes to established business, which is white business. 10% is all we're scrambling about. Tomorrow, Darren get a tender of 2 million. It will be a big noise, it's corrupt. They're not telling you about the trillions that are there, that these people are sitting on. So that's what MK must struggle with. That's the battle we must win. If you can't win that battle, 30 years down the line, we'll be sitting where we're sitting now, where you have got 45% of unemployment, 99% is black people. 60% of youth unemployment, 99% is black people. It's systematic. It is how it is designed. You need to dismantle that. If you can't dismantle that, 30 years from now, we can be, Haiti has been free for 200 years, but they're still poor. Because when you don't dismantle the system keeps producing the same thing that it was designed to produce. And MK's call is that nothing matters until we dismantle the land question, until we dismantle the judicial system, until we dismantle the economy system, which is all these things about the banks and how they're structured.
So throughout this evening, obviously, we've been having conversations with various members of the party, and in hearing what their challenges are, several of their challenges, whether it be the Youth League or the spokesperson or organizations or your role as advisor to or the High Command, sorry, almost there.
Yes.
I want to ask this question, and it relates to what your book is as well. And the first part is, do we have a full understanding of what freedom looks like for us yet? And how do we reach that level of understanding so that we can fully, as you say, collectively want for it and march for it in unity?
We don't know, because we don't know any better. We know what you know as much as you don't know what you don't know. So all we know is that we are on earth here. There must be a government of very good willing people who must supply for us and make us rise. That's why to this day, despite everybody, I mean, you need to be so naive not to pick up that the DA-ANC coalition of today was a white takeover. You need to be extremely naive. It was nothing else but a white takeover. Now, when you don't know what you don't know, you keep hoping that that takeover will take you somewhere. But it won't take you somewhere. It's there to entrench, because what President Zuma did, or at least tried to do when he started to talk about RAT, was start to question this dismantling. And they panicked, they regather, they get their own people that they know they've been working with, put R1 billion there to put them into power, so that their job is to make sure that 5 years down the line, not only do you have this weakened structure, you have got a situation where the DA, the white establishment, and the black elite, who are very struggling, meet into this thing called a coalition, so that there must never ever be a conversation about two-thirds majority. The battle about this DA coalition is to weaken the black voice, so that there must never be a two-thirds majority, because their biggest threat is the day you're going to take land, because they know they lose power. They know everything is there. So our people are not appreciative. But MK, the way it has couched itself, of course, from the guidance of President Zuma, the way it has couched itself, if you look at their pillars, if black people were to relax, read the pillars, and relax, don't listen to this white media, listen to the pillars consciously, and unite around the pillars, and make sure that come 2026 and later on the national election, they vote MK and we take the land. We just need that two-thirds majority. It's not a lot, by the way. We just need two-thirds majority. We take the land. You'll see. The moment you deal with poverty, you deal with teenage pregnancy, you deal with crime. Teenage pregnancy, crime, all these problems are a synopsis of a nation that has lost hope. You have got 60% of youth waking up early in the morning, not knowing what to do. They've got so much energy. What do you expect them to do? They're going to do all these funny things. But once we start to create jobs for them, they wake up early in the morning, they work, they sweat, they come back, they take showers, they start thinking about families, they get married, they have children. It cuts your crime. Your crime, you're not going to cut it by building prisons and by increasing the number of police. It doesn't work like that. America has failed. They've been failing. Who are failing? Our prisons are overcrowded despite arresting everybody in the world. Because we are addressing a socio-economic issue with the prison. Address the issue of unemployment. address poverty, people have got hope, then everything else changes. And you don't have to be biased, and somebody might be unbiased, but you can hear that articulation clear coming from MK. So if you look at the MK policies and the direction that MK takes, you can hear that clarity that if we were to follow that, we'll be shocked ourselves about our own freedom.
What I find interesting is that what you are saying and what you are advocating for is what everybody pretends to be advocating for, but in reality they don't. And what you are saying is you want to reduce crime, you want to reduce rape, you want to reduce unemployment, and to do that, the land needs to be accessible and the resources that come with it, etc., needs to be accessible to everyone. And yet we face opposition to that.
Yeah. So the only difference I think between MK and the rest is that others think that you must address unemployment by attracting what they call investment.
Foreign direct investment.
Which is nothing else but giving away your sovereignty to foreigners. It's a perpetuation of losing your sovereignty. Because when these people come with this thing that they call investment, which they've been coming with, all they do, they put condition on you so that you continue to lose your sovereignty. Others think that you can address crime by prison. We say, no, you can't address crime by prison. You address crime by confiscating the land, expropriation of land without compensation, by allowing people to have the dignity first to own a land and to own a house, by have the right not to work for someone if they don't want to work for someone, where they can create their own food and eat from home. We don't need to have poverty in this country. The land is so much and so enough for everyone.
Can we pause there for a second and I'll wrap up after this. But yeah. I think what you've highlighted is just such a foreign concept from where we are, because you've said if somebody doesn't want to work for anyone, they should be able to sustain their own livelihood on the land that they live. And that's so far from where we are, because we think if you want to get to that point, you first need to make millions of rands to buy land for yourself to be able to do that. But what you are saying is it should start the other way around.
Yes, you get the land was stolen. The land belonged to the people under the custodian of the chiefs. It was stolen by private business, which is nothing else but agglomerates of gangsters from Europe and America. And all you have to do is to return the land back to the people. People have got an option. Why do you buy something that was stolen from? I don't understand this concept that we are now saying you must go to school and make money so that you buy land so that you can build. No, we must not do that. We must start from the beginning. The land was stolen. And nobody's disagreeing, by the way. Even those who stole the land are not disagreeing. No, they're not disagreeing. They threaten you by saying, if you take the land, it's going to lose value. No, that's nonsense. They're not disagreeing. So we start there. We get the land, we say to Daryl, here's the land. You've got two options. You can use the land to develop a factory or do farming and sell if you want to be a business person. And others can develop their own food and eat. Remember, Daryl, 99% of the people who go to work, they go to work to pay for a house for their children and to buy food for their children, to have their children go to school. These are the three things. And land can address all of that. If people get land, they can build their own houses, which have been building before the arrival of the colonists. They can manufacture their own food. They can grow their own food. And the government can build a school where everybody goes to the school. That's all we have to do. And I still don't understand what is blocking this thing. And the reason, maybe it's wrong to say I don't understand. You see, the day I understood that 1994 was not a beginning of a freedom, was the replacement of the white colonial administrators by the black colonial administrators. I had peace. So all the system did, all the crown, the queen, the crown did, you are making too much noise, we are removing the white colonial administrators, we are bringing the black ones that looks like you. And you don't fight anymore. The job of ANC since 1994 was just to stop us from being too angry. But nothing changed. So the reason why there cannot be a change is that they are representative of the same colonial system that are blocking us from doing these things. You know, I've been in the ANC for many years. I was a chairperson of whatever. You go to an ANC conference. The Nasrec conference, the last Nasrec conference came with proper resolutions. What happens? No implementation. Because the very same people that they put R1 billion together to be leaders, they themselves hold on to this implementation.
I see.
And that's why President Zuma says, we've got resolutions. Clearly somebody is there to block these resolutions who has been given R1 billion. So it renders that, if you like, that party out. For me, a party that must implement those resolutions.
Yeah.
Because everybody agrees about the resolutions. But the reason why they're not implemented is that, I mean, you listen to what we call the Minister of Finance talking. The man has got no idea how the people are feeling on the ground. He's speaking a foreign language. The budgets that get announced every year doesn't talk to the people. Because it's not meant to talk to the people. By the way, the Reserve Bank has increased the repo rate 22 times in an economy that is growing by 0%. How do you explain that? So it's because all these people are planted there to hold on to this freedom, to this transformation, And my belief and my hope is that the MK party must mobilize itself, talk to the people of South Africa, mobilize them to get a 2/3 majority. So that these 7 pillars are there, once they're implemented, my brother, and I'm not talking here philosophy, I'm not talking politics, I'm talking real facts.
Yeah.
The day they're implemented, the life of a black child will never be the same. And the opposite is correct. For as long as you're going to have this coalition that they call a GNO, which is not a GNO, but it's a coalition between that group, which the Clerk spoke about, the liberal what, and the DA, and it's led by the DA. That's why today we're stuck with a basic law called the Bila. Bila is a basic law that says you cannot have education based on discrimination. It has been going around. Somebody can't side. Why can't the poor guy side? What is holding his hands?
Yeah.
And you think we're going to have freedom as black people? We don't have anything. You know.
All I can say is that I am very glad that the High Command has you to give them all of this advice.
Thank you.
I'm sure we could talk for hours.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
I'm very grateful for your time.
Thanks so much for inviting me. Thank you.
If you want to get in touch with Mr. Luther Labello, there will be some information in the captions. You can Google him. You can find his book. I'm sure there will be tons of great information for you. Thank you.
All right.